Today I've got a side-by-side of the Dipole from Tarptent, the Dipole 1 DW and the Dipole 1 Lithium. This is a double-walled polyester fly, and this is a single-wall Dyneema fly. Let's talk about the differences between these two tents and help you make a decision on which model makes the most sense for you and your backpacking needs. Now, of all the tents that I've used for my backpacking this year, the Dipole from Tarptent has been one of the most enjoyable tents I've actually ever used. I love the simple design. I love what it provides with a small footprint to make it easy to get into pretty much any campsite area that you want. Now let's talk about key similarities and differences between the two models here. When you look at them side by side, they look essentially identical, and they pretty much are. There are some very minor differences in the width, the length, the shape, the height, and such. But for the most part, they are exactly the same tent. But some key differences are the DW version stands for double walled. So this is a double walled tent that uses a 20 denier polyester fly for the outer, and then you've got a inner tent that uses a nylon floor. With the lithium version, you've got a single wall tent that uses a Dyneema composite fabric for the outer body of the tent and also has a Dyneema floor for the inner. Now, when it comes to living space with the tents, they are very similar, but the lithium version being single walled does have a touch more living space in it because you don't have the netting of the walls of the double wall version coming in on you a little bit, but there's still a ton of living space inside of this one person tent. It also is able to pitch with just a minimum of 4 stakes, has a very small footprint size, and is also very storm worthy. So the Dipole 1 DW comes in at a price of about $300, give or take a few bucks depending on which inner style you choose and the end strut style. I paid $289 for this, and that's what I love about the double wall version. It's very affordable and is gonna fit into a lot of people's budget that are looking for a quality tent, a really nice design that's storm worthy, provides a lot of living space for a one-person tent, and doesn't have to destroy your wallet to get into a shelter like this. What I like about this as well is the DW version is very modular in that I can get 2 different inner styles, a mesh inner or a solid inner. That solid inner is gonna help increase the ability to maintain some body heat inside of the tent for colder temperatures. It's also gonna help with spin drifting of sand and dirt flying into the inside of the tent. Something to note with this though is it does not come seam sealed. So you do have to either pay for seam sealing service or do it yourself. It's really not that difficult. I did it myself and it has been fantastic in the rain that I've had this tent out in. So the Dipole 1 DW comes in at an advertised weight of 32.5 ounces, which I think is a respectable weight for the design here, for how much living space you have, and for using a polyester fly and nylon materials. You do have to add the weight of trekking poles or carbon poles that are available from Tarptent to be able to pitch the tent. So yes, it is non-freestanding. It's got 2 doors, 2 vestibules, and dimension-wise, this is an 84-inch length floor. You've got 36 inches of width at the head end and the foot end, but it tapers down in kind of like an hourglass shape here in the middle of the tent, and that's what makes the Dipole unique in that because of the floor tapering in that way, you're able to get the proper amount of tension from the peak down to the sides of the corners where you're staking out so that it can pitch and be strong and stable with only 4 stakes to be able to pitch it. I do prefer having 6 to 8 stakes total to get the best performance possible out of the tent. You can see in this wind right now that this is doing really well against these pretty gusty winds that are taking place. And that's a nice thing about the design is you don't have these really big broad walls that are creating a sail for the wind and such to catch onto and become an issue with the performance of the tent. Now at the head end and the foot end of the tent, you've got an 18-inch high strut that brings that end of the tent up higher off the ground, provides all of the space that you need to lay down and not have the wall of the tent right against your face. You're less likely to deal with condensation issues getting onto your gear inside of the tent. And this being double walled, you've got that benefit of reducing the amount of condensation transfer from the tent body to the inner tent to then create your gear getting all wet and such. You have a 43-inch high peak height, which is plenty of space to sit up and move around and just enjoy yourself inside of the tent. Something I really like about the tent here is you do have the ability to create a bit more ventilation. So I can open up this little zipper right here. I've got gloves on, so it's a little bit tricky, but there's a piece of elastic shock cord right here that I wrap over the top of the strut, but that allows for more ventilation into the tent to help reduce the amount of condensation. But when you've got a storm coming in, zip that down, and then you're protecting water and such from spraying into the tent. You can access this vent from inside of the tent, no problem, and not have to get out of the tent to be able to manage that when you're sitting through a storm. Now talking about the Dipole 1 Lithium, this comes in at a price of $649, so over $300 more than the double wall version. But what this is made out of is a 0.51 ounce Dyneema composite fabric, which provides so many benefits over some other options out there, but it is a 24.8 ounce weight for this tent. So 10 ounces of weight savings compared to the double wall version, which is important to some people. But if that's not important to you, then the double wall version is really nice because it saves a bunch of money essentially and still gets the same design, really a high quality tent without having to spend close to $700. But what I like about the lithium version is it's single walled, so you've got a little bit more living space inside of the tent, but dimensionally it's essentially the same. You still have an 84-inch length floor, 36-inch length head end and foot end of the floor, 28 inches at the center of the tent. And then at the head end and the foot end of the tent, what's different is this uses a 21-inch height strut as opposed to 18 inches. So you're getting a bit more height from the ground up so that you don't have to worry so much about condensation transferring from the walls of the tent to your gear. Your peak height is still at 44 inches, and then you have 2 doors, 2 vestibules. So essentially the same design as the double wall. Now what's different here as well on the lithium version is the venting at the head end and the foot end of the tent. You've got a large mesh panel here that allows for a lot of airflow to the inside of the tent. This provides also the ability to close off completely if you find yourself in a storm so you don't have rain blowing in and getting the inside of the tent wet. The vestibule size of both options are plenty large for you to place all of your gear. And because you've got 2 doors and 2 vestibules, you have enough space to put all of the gear that you need to keep it contained and protected inside of the tent. You've also got enough floor space for you to place things at the head end and foot end for you. It's just a very livable, roomy, enjoyable tent that way. You do have a slightly larger vent on the double wall version compared to the lithium version, but the lithium still has plenty of open venting options for you to get enough air movement through it. The condensation doesn't become a huge issue. The Dipole, it just may be one of the top 5 backpacking tents that I have ever used, and I highly recommend it. So I've actually got individual videos for these tents with a bit more detail on them down in the video description. You can also check them out here. But thanks for watching today, guys. If you are not subscribed to the channel, Please do subscribe. Hope you have an awesome day. See you later.